Good evening and welcome to Sensual Talk. And this is the place where we talk all things sensual, tantalizing, and delicious. I'm your host, Emanuela Fernandes, and with me today is a good friend of mine, relationship expert and author of 12 Keys to Finding Love in Less Than 300 Dates, Miss Tal Shaish. I'm visiting you tonight, and I thank you so much for having me at your home.
Thank you so much for coming, and thank you so much for having me on your show.
It's really amazing because I am absolutely inspired by who you are. You truly are committed to the world of happiness, the world of sensuality, the world of people really finding each other in ways that are fulfilling and satisfying. So, I thank you, and I'm so honored to have you on Sensual Talk this evening. So, and all of you, thank you very much for joining us. Lots in store for you this evening. And of course, I think we should start with a toast to
Yes,
Sensual
for sure.
Talk.
That's the best.
Amazing. So, Tal, thank you very much for having me at your home, and all the viewers, of course. Thank you so much. So, Tal, so many things to talk about, and today we decided to go with the topic of how to deepen sensual intimacy. I think it is such an important topic. So, what does sensual intimacy mean to you?
Well, let's start with what it's not. Well, today in our world, when usually both of the couples, both partners are working extended hours, and especially when we have kids in the house, we are just burned out. And when it comes to intimacy, it just sounds like a luxury. It became a luxury, not something that you nurture anymore, not something that you care for. If at the beginning of the relationship you were having this glass of wine every evening, or having some romantic gestures, or having sex everywhere in the house, exploring the other person's body. So right now it's like a luxury because we're working, we're tired, we have so much. So sensual intimacy starts with breathing, opening your chest and slowing down a little bit from this cycle of running and running and running. It's just taking a deep breath a moment before you get into your house, before you open the door, and take a deep breath and go to your partner first, before the kids, even before the kids. I know how hard it is. And look to him or to her in the eyes and give them a big juicy kiss in front of the kids, because kids need to know what love is,
So true.
and that the mommy and daddy not always fighting, right? And they also know how to say I'm sorry, and also know how to say I love you. So take this moment to breathe, to kiss, and then to say the rest of the family or the rest of the people that are there hello as well. But it's take this moment to unite together. The joy of coming back home, of coming back together. This is the beginning of intimacy, of sensual intimacy.
That's amazing, and it's so true because when the children come around, we often forget about the fact that the couple starts off first, right? There are two of us, and then there are kids and the family and everyone else. So and it's true because we often get disconnected from our partner, and we forget that without them we wouldn't have the family, and we do have to cherish and celebrate that. So
Totally.
I love that you're saying that. And actually this leads to my next question. What are other rituals that couples can cultivate in order to stay sensually connected?
Well, that's a beautiful question, because we have rituals every day that we don't even pay attention to. But when we come to sensuality, we neglect them. So it's a very good question that you're raising it. So one of the things that I would really think that are awesome to do is, first of all, it's a very, very common answer, to have the date night. So I know it's like, okay, every therapist or every coach says something about date night, right? But it's taking a moment to yourself with no cell phones on the table. And I repeat this, and you listen to no cell phones on the table, right? And
And you have to listen to the expert.
exactly. Because one of the things that really cuts our sensuality or our intimacy is the TV, is all the Netflix and all the channels and all this addiction to Facebook and Instagram and everything. So we are all the time connected, and when you see couples in bed, what they're doing is they're turning their back to each other and look at their device.
True.
So one of the things is, first of all, cut off the minimum. Like maybe you can charge it in the living room. And if you need a alarm clock, just buy an alarm clock, okay?
Right, something that doesn't connect you to the outside world.
Exactly. So if you wake up in the middle of the night, have sex, don't look at Facebook. Okay, so put this cell phone away. But going back to the dating night, it's very important, especially when a couple is going out for a long period of time, several years, or when they have kids. So they need to take the time for ourselves without talking about work, without talking about kids, without talking about the bank account, which is always a problem, as we know. So what can they talk about, right? So if we're not talking about work or kids or bank, what are we talking about? So I want to recommend, if it's okay that I recommend the
Of
product.
course.
It's called Gottman, Gottman, card deck, and it's an app that you can find on your device.
Good to know.
And it has so many questions that you can develop a conversation and you can ask your partner. And so many also sex exercises that you can see and find if your partner wants, and you want to enhance your intimacy as well, your physical intimacy. The other thing that I really like is to use, as you're the expert for sexuality, is to use our senses. So a good date can be a surprise that you make, and you use it with all five senses. You can tie the eyes, with a ribbon or something that you don't see.
That is so hot.
It is, and try several things to try to eat, like whipped cream, ice cubes, like all sorts of very sensual things, like pineapple,
Right.
like stuff like that can go over. And you can also increase your hearing when you're covering your eyes, so you're more likely to
Get in tune with your hearing. Sense of
exactly,
hearing.
and the
Amazing.
heartbeats. Put your ear on your hubby's heart chest and listen to his or her heart.
There you go. That's amazing. Great tips.
And another thing is also the sense, the smell. I know that here in Canada, everywhere we're not using fragrance in workplace and in the street. You're not used to, but feel free. And by the way, I wanted to tell you something, that women are much more sensitive to body smell, much more than men. So if you're a guy who's watching us, so I think it would be better if you take into consideration that the woman that you likes to have you either sweaty or maybe likes the shower and the soap, and see what she likes and explore it, take it to the next level.
And try both, because really it's all about pheromones, right? So some women are extremely attracted to that raw smell of pheromones, which is your natural body fragrance, right? And I love when you speak about food and sensual eating. I mean, really think of Mickey Rourke and Kim Basinger in 9.5 weeks, right? Think of that amazing scene, right? Where they're feeding each other and they're playing with food. I mean, it really doesn't get any more sensual than this. So, I really invite you to play with that, because this woman is really speaking something that I have been so passionate about for so many years, really engaging your senses of all five of your senses through food, but really also through foreplay. I mean, think of tickling, think of licking that you can incorporate into your foreplay, and just see where it leads. And as I always say, just start with a foreplay, see kind of where it takes you, and maybe the end result is not necessarily going to be that mind-blowing sex or mind-blowing orgasm, but it's still going to strengthen the bond between you, this sensual bond, this such coveted sensual
Totally.
bond, right?
Yeah, and also I can use imagination.
So
It's a muscle, imagination. So if we don't, because everything is very visual those days, so we don't imagine how many people actually engage with books, and not just self-help books, but fiction.
Right.
And if we use this fiction to empower our relationships, whether it's a fantasy book or whether you just come up with your own fantasy and try to engage the other partner with this fantasy, and let your imagination go and just develop this so-called muscle, so you can definitely go to places that you never ever thought you would.
How about the little book called The Stopover? Right, that's probably a good one to start with. I would really appreciate that. Thank you. Amazing stuff, Tal. Let's talk a little bit about, I always say that sensuality starts with yourself, right? And sensuality starts within really how you feel about yourself and how you cultivate that sense of being a sensual being, right? So, what are the things that we can do on our own that don't necessarily involve our partners that can strengthen that sensual bond with our partner in the end of the day?
Well, that's another good question. You're great.
Thank you. Can you tell I've done television before?
Yes,
Thank you.
that's a good one. I believe that we ought not want, or we actually, it's our need, and we don't have a right not to explore. We ought to explore ourselves and our sensuality. And as you say, start with ourselves. Now, I would say, look and try to figure out what arouses you. What arouses you? Okay, so whether it's like watching erotic movie, or whether it's like even watching porn, or even if it's like doing things to yourself and learning the body, your body, what you like to touch, how you like to be touched, where you like to be touched, when you like to be touched. With women, there are different times of the month that they like to be touched differently.
So true.
So it's not like what women want. So what women want is to be alpha male in the first two weeks of the month, and then to be a beta male and loving and caring when we are, in our pain, and we need our time for ourselves.
We need our TLC.
We need our TLC.
Amazing.
Yeah, so definitely explore it. And I know the thing is, our society, they send us mixed messages about our sensuality, because you see sexuality everywhere, but you don't see sensuality.
Very true.
So everything you see is very blunt and very right in your face, or you have to be like, on the contrary, like a nun. But we don't talk about sensual. So I advise you, and I really invite all the women and the men, figure out to go to explore. And how do we do that? We open ourselves to new experience. For example, if you go to a restaurant, your usual restaurant, and you always order the same dish, then this time order something else.
So be really experimental.
Yes.
Be adventurous.
Yes, because it's also the way our brain is rewired. We are rewiring our brain towards sensuality. And if we're taking a walk in the park, then take a different route. Take a look at the beauty outside. I love to take this example of look at the fallen leaf on the ground, or take a look at the sky and during sunset. It's amazing. Like, enjoy the beauty of sounds, the beauty of scents and smells, the beauty of the taste of things, the beauty of the sights. Enjoy the beauty. And another thing is, when you look at your partner, and especially if you're long-term relationship and it's not like what it used to be, and maybe you gained a little bit of weight, or maybe the other partner gained a little bit of weight. Stuff happens in life. So take a look at them from far. Take a little bit, walk to the other side of the room and think what made you fall in love with him or with her. What happened there? And that's a really, really good way to explore yourself and to explore your other sides, sensuality. Sorry, it's the word.
I love that. And I also say, think of what gives you pleasure. Don't necessarily wear lingerie for someone else. Start with yourself. See how it makes you feel. See how your body responds to it, and really find your own pleasure. You can't really share pleasure with anyone else until you discover what pleasure is.
Totally.
And what makes you happy. And very quickly, Tal, because I think we're running out of time, but very, very quickly, if we feel like we are completely sensually disconnected from our partner, is there hope?
The question is, where we connected before? That's a great question, because if we do used to have it, so yes, we can definitely grow a lot of intimacy, because right now we talked about senses, but there's also other parts that involved in a relationship and involved in the deep connection, and we can definitely figure out, and we can definitely go to places and discover and rediscover things that can help us build the sensuality again.
Wonderful. Tal, I can't thank you enough. I know that you and I will continue just talking about this subject of
course.
sensuality, of love, of happiness, of relationships. And I want to thank you very much for joining me for this incredible experience, for hosting me at your home. And I want to thank you all for joining us this evening for another episode of Sensual Talk. And of course, make sure to pick up Tal's incredible book of 12 Keys to Finding Love in Less Than 300 Dates. It's wonderful even if you are in a relationship and you want a good read and you want to reconnect. This is the book to go to. So Tal, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on Sensual Talk. I'm Emanuela Fernandes. Amazing.